The private jet descended through the clouds like a silver ghost, slicing through the afternoon haze to reveal the city below. From his leather seat, Alex Sterling watched the world rush up to meet him. At 35, he was a king in a kingdom of his own making, an empire of code and silicon. His name was a headline, his face was on magazine covers, and his fortune had so many zeros it looked like a round of applause. He was coming home after a month of brutal negotiations in Asia, a deal that added another billion to his name. He was tired, but a smile touched his lips. He was returning home to his fiancée, Victoria, and to the sprawling mansion that was a monument to his victory over a past that felt more like a gritty dream than a memory. The gates to his estate slid open with a whisper. The grounds were perfect, a curated wilderness of ancient oaks and bright flower beds. His mansion stood against the sky, all sharp angles and blinding white, a fortress of modern wealth. He walked through the towering front doors, the air cool and smelling of lilies and lemon polish. He expected to hear Victoria's cheerful greeting, to feel her arms around him. He expected peace, but the smile vanished. His world stopped. His heart nearly stopped, because what he saw was something no son should ever have to see. His mother, his adopted mother, Elena, the woman who found him as a forgotten child in a state-run home, the woman who had starved herself so he could eat, the woman who had worked her fingers raw, cleaning other people's houses to send him to school, was on her knees. She was scrubbing the black marble floor of his mansion, scrubbing it like a servant. And standing over her, arms crossed with a look of cold, impatient disdain, was his fiancée, Victoria. She held a glass of champagne, her voice like poison coated in sugar. "Elena, you missed a spot. Right there. Can you not see it?" Alex froze, a statue of disbelief. His briefcase, filled with papers worth millions, slipped from his numb fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. His throat tightened, and his heart hammered in his ears like a war drum. He watched his mother, his hero, flinch at Victoria's tone. But what Victoria couldn't possibly understand was that a mother's sacrifice had built that mansion. A mother's boundless love had forged the boy into the billionaire who now stood in the doorway. And that son was about to remind everyone, in the most public way imaginable, who the real queen of this castle was. Before we continue, please take a moment to tell us in the comments what time it is where you're watching from, and if you believe that no mother should ever be humiliated, and that a lifetime of sacrifice deserves honor, not shame, click the subscribe button. Your support allows us to keep telling powerful stories just like this one. The silence in the grand foyer was thick and suffocating. Elena, still on her knees, looked up and saw him. Her warm, kind eyes, which had been his only sanctuary for years, widened in panic. She scrambled to her feet, her movements clumsy with surprise and a deep, ingrained shame that broke Alex's heart into 1,000 pieces. "Alex, you're home early," she stammered, fumbling to wipe her hands on her worn apron. But Alex's eyes were locked on Victoria. He walked forward, his steps slow and deliberate, each footfall on the marble echoing like a judgment. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The rage coming off him was a physical force. "What is this?" he asked, his voice a low whisper that carried more weight than a shout. Victoria, initially startled, quickly composed herself. "Alex, darling, you're back. Don't be so dramatic." She gestured with her champagne flute. "The regular staff is off today, and the house was a mess. Elena offered to help. She said she used to be a maid, you know. I suppose it's what she's comfortable with." "She's comfortable on her knees?" Alex's voice sharpened, each word a shard of glass. "Oh, please. She's your adopted mother, I know, but she's not your real mother. She's lucky you let her live here. She should be grateful to contribute." Every word was a calculated strike, meant to put Elena in her place. Alex looked from Victoria's cold smile to his mother, who now stood with her head bowed, trying to disappear. He turned back to Victoria, and for the first time he saw her not as the woman he planned to marry, but as a cruel, hollow stranger. "She's not lucky to live here," Alex said, the steel in his voice now unmistakable. "This house is lucky to have her in it. Everything I have, everything I am, I owe to this woman. The ground you're standing on was paid for by her sacrifice." He walked over to Elena and gently took the sponge from her trembling hands, throwing it into the bucket with a splash. "Mom," he said, his voice now gentle, "go upstairs to your room, please. I'll handle this." Elena hesitated, her eyes pleading. "Alex, please, don't make a fuss. It was nothing." "It wasn't nothing," Alex insisted. "Let me make this right." He gave her a reassuring nod, and as Elena walked towards the grand staircase, Victoria muttered, "Honestly, she walks like she's carrying a bag of bricks." Alex turned, very, very slowly. "Say that again," he whispered. "Stop being so dramatic, Alex. She acts like a maid, she dresses like a maid. Do you really think I'm marrying into your sad little backstory? I'm marrying you, the billionaire, not the street kid she picked up." The silence that followed was absolute. In that moment, Alex knew his relationship with Victoria was over. But just ending it wasn't enough. The humiliation had been casual and cruel. Restoring his mother's honor had to be a spectacle. Later that night, Alex sat in his cavernous home office, the glittering city skyline sprawling before him. But he wasn't seeing the lights or the framed magazine covers on his wall. He was seeing a cramped, two-room apartment that smelled of boiled cabbage and old wallpaper. He was seeing the past, more vivid than the present. His mind drifted back to when he was 7. He wasn't Alex Sterling, the tech mogul. He was just Alex, a quiet boy who believed he was made of glass, destined to be broken. Then came Elena. She wasn't young or glamorous. She was a widow who worked as a seamstress. But when she saw him, she didn't see a problem child. She saw a son. A memory, sharp and painful, surfaced. He was 9, sick with pneumonia. The doctor prescribed an expensive antibiotic they couldn't afford. Elena sat by his hospital bed for 3 days, holding his hand. He later found out she had sold the one piece of jewelry she had left from her late husband, a simple gold watch. She traded her only memento for his future. Another image bloomed. He was 16, passionate about computers. A citywide coding competition was announced, the prize a scholarship that could be his ticket out of poverty. But the project required a new computer he couldn't afford. He watched as Elena's face flickered with determination. She took on a third job, cleaning office buildings late at night. One morning, around 3 a.m., he found her asleep at their small kitchen table, her hands red and raw from harsh chemicals. Next to her was a catalog with the computer he needed circled in red. A wave of love and shame washed over him. She was literally breaking herself to build him up. He remembered the day he won, running home, waving the acceptance letter. Elena hugged him, her tears of pride soaking his shirt. That night, on their worn-out sofa, he made a promise. "Mom," he'd said, his voice cracking, "one day I'm going to be rich. I'm going to buy you a castle. You'll never have to work another day in your life." Elena had laughed, a warm, genuine sound. She cupped his face in her hands. "Oh, my sweet boy," she'd said, "you don't have to buy me a castle. You are my castle." That memory was the fuel for the fire now burning inside him. He lived in a modern-day castle, and he had allowed the woman who built him to be brought so low within its walls. She had been his only cheerleader. She had taught him about love and decency. He had been so consumed with success that he'd become blind to what was happening in his own home. Beneath his grief, a cold, hard resolve was forming. The pain of the last few hours began to transform. His anger and guilt coalesced into a diamond-hard clarity. He understood that this was not a private matter. Her humiliation had been a casual, public display of disrespect. Her vindication had to be just as public. It had to be a coronation. While the house slept, Alex sat in his office and began to make quiet, deliberate calls. The billionaire was going to war, not for a company, but for the soul of his family. His first call was to his lawyer. "David," Alex began, "I need 2 things, urgently. First, I want you to begin the process of formally adopting my mother, Elena Sterling. I want her name on every legal document, every trust, as my mother and a primary beneficiary. Second, draw up papers to end the engagement. Victoria will be served by the end of the week."
There was a stunned silence before the lawyer simply said, "Consider it done, Alex." His second call was to the organizer of the annual Sterling Foundation Charity Gala, a massive event just 2 days away. "Catherine," Alex said, "we're making some changes. Cancel the keynote speaker. I will be speaking instead. And the guest of honor has changed. It's my mother, Elena Sterling. I want her seated at the head table next to me. The entire evening will be a tribute to her." His final call was to his company's COO. "Mark, I'm launching a new charitable arm of the foundation, effective immediately. It will be called the Elena Foundation. Its mission is to support single adoptive parents and children in the foster care system. I want the charter ready to sign in 48 hours, live, on stage at the gala." The next morning, Alex found his mother in the garden. He told her he was taking her to a very special event. Fear flickered in her eyes. "I don't have anything to wear for something like that, Alex," she said softly. "I've taken care of it," he replied gently. That afternoon, a team of the city's best stylists arrived, treating Elena like royalty. Overwhelmed, she finally chose a stunning gown of deep sapphire blue that brought the light in her eyes. When she looked in the mirror, she saw not a former maid, but a graceful, beautiful woman. For the first time since he'd returned, Alex saw a flicker of her old spark. Meanwhile, Victoria, blissfully unaware, was also preparing for the gala. She believed it was her grand debut as Alex Sterling's official fiancée, a night to cement her place at the top of the city social ladder. She had no idea she was preparing for her own public downfall. The night of the gala arrived. The ballroom was a sea of black ties and glittering diamonds. Flashbulbs popped as media lined the red carpet. Victoria was in her element, preening and posing, awaiting Alex's arrival. Then a hush fell over the crowd. A black town car pulled up, and Alex stepped out. But he wasn't alone. He turned and offered his arm to the woman who emerged from the car. It was Elena. She looked radiant. The sapphire gown shimmered, and her silver hair was styled in an elegant chignon. As they stepped onto the red carpet, confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Victoria's face was a mask of pure shock, followed by a flash of rage. She strode towards them, hissing, "Alex, what is the meaning of this? Why is she here, dressed like that?" Alex didn't even glance at her. He looked down at his mother, his voice warm. "You look beautiful, Mom." He then guided Elena past his fuming fiancé as if she were a statue and into the ballroom, leading her directly to the seat of honor at the head table. Victoria was left standing alone on the red carpet, her moment of triumph turning to public humiliation. Later, Alex walked to the podium. A respectful silence fell. He began calmly, speaking about success and responsibility. He said, "We celebrate achievement, but we often forget that no one builds an empire alone." His eyes swept the room, then landed on his mother. He extended a hand towards her. "Tonight's true guest of honor is this woman. Her name is Elena Sterling." Polite, confused applause trickled through the room. "Many of you know me as Alex Sterling, the billionaire, but for most of my life,
I was just Alex, a lost kid in a broken system. When I had nothing, this woman found me. She adopted me. She was a widow with barely enough to get by, but she gave me everything. She worked 3 jobs so I could have a computer. She sold her most precious possession to buy me medicine when I was sick. The room was now utterly silent. Tears welled in the eyes of some in the audience. Then Alex's voice dropped. This woman's love built my world. So imagine my shock when I returned home 2 days ago to the home that her love built, and I found her on her hands and knees. I found her scrubbing my floors, being treated like a servant. A collective gasp went through the ballroom. Eyes darted to the horrified face of Victoria, who looked as if she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. I learned a valuable lesson that day, Alex said, his gaze landing on Victoria with cold finality. I learned that you can live in a palace and still have a poverty of spirit. You can be draped in jewels and still be morally bankrupt. He turned away from her. To honor her legacy, tonight we are launching the Elena Foundation, which will dedicate millions to supporting adoptive families like my mother, who give everything to build the future. His lawyer, David, walked onto the stage, holding a leather portfolio. And finally, Alex said, his voice thick with emotion, I am rectifying a legal oversight. He took a pen, and on a document projected on the large screens behind him, he signed his name. Tonight, in front of all of you, I have signed the final papers to legally adopt the woman who has always been my mother. He turned from the podium and walked directly to Elena, who was openly weeping. He knelt before her, taking her hands in his. Mom, he whispered, his own tears now flowing, you once told me that you were my castle. You will never serve another person in this house again. Welcome home. The ballroom erupted in a roar of approval, a standing ovation that washed away the ugliness of what had been revealed. Alex ignored it, embracing his mother in a fierce embrace. In the chaos, a humiliated Victoria slipped out a side door, her departure noticed by few and mourned by none. The days that followed were a new beginning. Victoria was gone. The first thing Alex did was replace a large abstract painting in the main hall with a beautiful framed portrait of Elena from the night of the gala. She was now the matriarch of the house. Elena never had to work again, but she couldn't sit still. The house, once a cold museum, was now filled with warmth. The scent of her baking wafted from the kitchen, and she hummed old lullabies as she tended to the rose garden. Alex found that multi-million-dollar deals seemed less important. He started coming home earlier, spending his evenings not with business partners, but with his mother, looking through old photo albums and laughing. He was finally keeping the promise he made as a boy, not just by giving her a castle, but by being present in it. A mother's love made a boy a billionaire, but it took becoming a billionaire for him to finally understand the true value of that love. His wealth hadn't saved her, his love had. The story of Alex and Elena is a powerful reminder that kindness is never wasted, and a mother's sacrifice is a sacred debt that can only be repaid with unwavering honor. Blood doesn't make a family. Love does. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories about love, family, and the things that truly matter in life.